An award-winning actress, and I'm fired.
Why is it being seen as like obscene?
You know, she's somebody who is reconciling with the old while making way for the new.
Narrative, it was all to let you into.
Blake Lively nearly snagged a powerful new role, but sources say Demi Moore wasn't having it. Alleged behind-the-scenes drama, control issues, and a push for power flipped the entire project upside down. What did Demi expose? The truth might surprise you. Tap subscribe, and let's break it all down. At first glance, Blake Lively seemed like the obvious choice for the role of young Elizabeth Sparkle. She had the name, the look, and a track record that fit perfectly with the character's bold, magnetic persona. Known for playing captivating and daring women, she brought a natural confidence that could light up the screen. On paper, it was a match made in casting heaven. The role was part of a layered story, 2 timelines, 1 character, and a deep transformation over the years. It called for a youthful, radiant presence that would eventually transition into a complex and experienced woman. With Blake's glamour and star power, it seemed like the narrative had found its younger half. But as exciting as it seemed, something didn't sit right behind the scenes. Quiet conversations started to unfold, meetings stretched longer, notes started circulating, and suddenly, what looked like a simple casting decision started turning into something else entirely. This wasn't just a typical audition process anymore. There were whispers that Blake was steering things in a new direction, one that wasn't exactly in sync with the original creative vision. And just like that, what started as a dream role began to raise some eyebrows. When Demi Moore was locked in to play the older version of Elizabeth Sparkle, the tone of the production shifted. Instantly, Demi brought something few others could: years of experience, emotional weight, and a legacy that naturally drew attention. Her involvement gave the project new life and a sense of seriousness. But according to insiders, Blake's enthusiasm started to fade the moment Demi was confirmed. It wasn't about respect for Demi's talent. Most say Blake never doubted her abilities. It was something else. Something visual. Sources close to the project hinted that Blake quietly voiced concerns about how the contrast between the 2 actresses might affect the film's believability. Maybe, just maybe, she was worried the transition between young and older Elizabeth wouldn't feel natural. Some even claim she began suggesting older actresses with a more aged-in appearance to better match her own look. It sounded like an innocent idea on the surface, but to those in the room, it felt more like subtle repositioning. From that moment on, things began to spiral. The producers saw it, the director felt it, and what was once a clean creative decision started to feel like a power play wrapped in polite feedback. Behind closed doors, what started as friendly suggestions began evolving into something much more complicated. According to people close to the production, Blake became deeply involved, sometimes too involved. She reportedly started offering input on wardrobe design, asking for specific costume changes that would better fit her post-pregnancy figure. There were also conversations about camera angles. Sources say she favored one side of her face and requested lighting adjustments to support that. Producers expected a few preferences, of course, but they didn't expect a growing list of personal tweaks that slowly began to affect the schedule. One producer even described how Blake began sending emails with ideas for how to reshape Elizabeth's wardrobe. She had notes on color palettes, fabric textures, even accessories. Then came the discussions about timing. Blake had recently welcomed a new baby and understandably wanted time to feel fully ready for filming. But insiders claim the scheduling flexibility soon turned into a series of delays. From costume redesigns to lighting cues, every request was met with understanding until they began piling up. Slowly, the creative direction was being weighed down by logistical roadblocks, and some crew members began to wonder, was this about comfort or control? The script's emotional peak involved a deeply raw moment for the younger Elizabeth Sparkle. This scene was crucial to the character's arc, a moment of real vulnerability that set the tone for her entire transformation. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't loud, but it carried emotional weight that couldn't be skipped. That's when the tension really started. Sources say Blake pushed back hard on the scene, questioning its relevance and emotional tone. She reportedly suggested that it be rewritten entirely or removed altogether. Her argument? That the pain could be portrayed without pushing certain boundaries. To the writers and director, this felt like a red flag. They had crafted this moment carefully. It wasn't about shock, it was about storytelling. And the scene had already been embraced by Demi Moore, who was fully prepared to bring her entire range to it. Blake's resistance sparked long conversations behind the scenes. Was she protecting her image? Was she uncomfortable with the vulnerability? Or was she attempting to shape the character into someone else entirely? Either way, her refusal to engage with a key moment raised serious doubts. And those doubts made their way up the chain, fast. By this point, things had already grown tense, but what happened next left the team stunned. Blake, who hadn't officially secured the role yet, allegedly started submitting her own dialogue suggestions. She had ideas for the film's opening montage, how to frame flashbacks, and even proposed an alternate ending. The boldest move came when she reportedly requested a co-producer credit. Her reasoning? That she'd already shaped several elements of the project and wanted that influence recognized. One producer later described it as an invisible takeover. Another said it felt like she was decorating a house she hadn't even moved into. And while some of her ideas were creative, they didn't always align with the original vision. It wasn't just that she had opinions, it was the timing. The role hadn't been finalized, but the emails and meeting requests kept coming. Some on the team began to wonder if they were being pulled into a version of the story they hadn't agreed to tell. And slowly, everyone realized something had to give. As the dust began to settle, another issue quietly surfaced: tension between Blake and Demi Moore. Rumors started to swirl that Blake had made offhand comments about Demi's appearance. Nothing was said on the record, but word spread quickly in industry circles. For Demi, who had approached the role with full commitment and respect, the alleged remarks hit hard. Sources close to her say she took it personally, especially since she had been nothing but professional from day one. Demi didn't respond publicly. She didn't release a statement. But those close to the project noticed the shift. Meetings felt different, conversations cooled, and a silent distance grew between the two actresses. There was no big confrontation, no dramatic fallout, just a quiet decision from Demi to step away from any further interaction. The connection between the two was officially broken, and while no one confirmed the details, insiders say the message was clear: respect matters, especially in a story that's built on emotional honesty and trust. And from that point on, there was no doubt. Blake would not be part of the final production. With Blake no longer in the picture, the team brought in Margaret Qualley to play the younger Elizabeth. And the mood shifted immediately. Margaret wasn't flashy, she wasn't loud, but she had something the film desperately needed: depth without drama. The creative team praised her for being thoughtful, flexible, and emotionally grounded. She didn't try to rewrite scenes, she didn't ask for camera favors. She simply showed up and focused on the work. But according to insiders, Blake didn't take the news well. Whispers began to circulate that she questioned the casting choice. Some say she claimed Margaret didn't visually match Demi Moore, while others report she even commented on Margaret's appearance in private conversations. Whether those remarks were real or exaggerated, one thing is clear: they reached Margaret. And while she's known for being composed in public, her reaction at a major industry event spoke volumes. She reportedly walked right past Blake without acknowledgement. No nod, no smile, no small talk. It was subtle, but in Hollywood, silence can say everything. And in that moment, it was clear. The fallout hadn't just lingered, it had landed. As the Elizabeth Sparkle situation unfolded, some in the industry began connecting the dots. This wasn't the first time Blake had allegedly tried to shift the direction of a project. Whispers about her involvement in It Ends With Us and even early conversations around Barbie pointed to a familiar pattern. Ambition? Yes, but maybe more than that. Sources say she has a habit of stepping into creative spaces and trying to reshape them, sometimes before even being fully signed on. For big studio films, that might be manageable. But for personal, story-driven projects like Elizabeth Sparkle, it's a different story. These types of films thrive on trust, not just talent. They require actors who are willing to become part of something bigger, not lead it from behind the scenes. And when someone tries to direct the narrative before the cameras even roll, it throws everything off balance. More and more, producers are watching. They're taking note of the patterns, the delays, the quiet conflicts. And slowly, the reputation shifts. Let us know what you think. Was Blake trying to contribute or trying to control? Drop your thoughts in the comments and make sure to check out our next breakdown for more inside stories from Hollywood's biggest headlines.